Hi K119. I miss you all so much, and I think it'd be a lot of fun if we did a special read aloud just for fun together. I have a really special book that I think you'll like. It's called The Stonecutter. This book is illustrated and written by Gerald McDermott, but originally this story is a folk tale or a very old story that people tell their kids, and then their kids tell their kids, and their kids tell their kids. A very old story from Japan. So, you ready to read? The Stonecutter. Tasaku was a lowly stonecutter. Each day, the sound of his hammer and chisel, which is a tool used for cutting rocks, each day the sound of his hammer and chisel rang out as he chipped away at the foot of the mountain. He hewed, or cut, the blocks of stone that formed the great temples and palaces of Japan. So here is Tasaku chipping away at the mountain to make blocks. He asked for nothing more than to work each day, and this pleased the spirit who lived in the mountains. So here's Tasaku making his blocks at the mountains, and here's the big mountain spirit. So we can say that Tasaku is very humble. When you're humble, it means that you're grateful for what you have and you are willing to work. One day, a prince went by. Soldiers went after him, and musicians and dancers followed him. He was clothed in beautiful silk robes, and his servants carried him up high. Tasaku watched until the magnificent or beautiful procession passed out of sight. So here's the procession. There's the prince. And here's Tasaku with his hammer and chisel and his block. Tasaku cut no more stone and returned to his hut, or small house. He envied the prince. He was jealous. He looked up into the sky and wished aloud that he might have such great money and wealth some day. And then he slept. The spirit who lived in the mountains heard him. So here's Tasaku going back to his hut, or small house, and here's the mountain spirit who's listening to him. And that night, the mountain spirit transformed the stonecutter into a prince. See how big the spirit is? And this is the palace that the stonecutter is going to wake up in. Tasaku was overjoyed, so happy. He lived in a palace and wore robes of the finest silk. Musicians played for him and servants bowed low. He commanded great armies and ruled over the land. So here's Tasaku in his beautiful silk robes in his palace, and his armies, and everyone worshiping him. Every afternoon, Tasaku walked in his garden. He loved the fragrant petals of the flowers and the graceful vines, but the sun burned his flowers. He knelt over the tired blossoms and saw the power of the sun. So here's Tasaku looking at his burned flowers, and there's the sun. Tasaku wanted to be as powerful as the sun, so he asked the spirit who lived in the mountains to change him into the sun. The spirit heard him. Tasaku became the sun, and he was happy for a time. To show his power, he burned the fields and parched the lands. The people begged for water. So here's the spirit, and he's a little smaller now. And here's the sun. The sun is powerful, and it's so big, and it's burning all of the land, and the people are so thirsty. Then a cloud came and covered the sun, and the bright rays of the sun were hidden. Tasaku then knew the cloud was even more powerful than the sun. He told the spirit to change him into a cloud. The spirit heard him. Tasaku became the cloud, With his new power, he made violent storms. Thunder rolled across the sky. Rivers overran their banks, and fields were flooded. Huts and palaces were washed away. So here's the spirit, and he's feeling a little shy now because Tasaku is getting all kinds of power. And here's the big, powerful cloud covering the sun, washing away everything. But the mountain remained. Tasaku was angry because the mountain was more powerful than the cloud. "Make me into a mountain," Tasaku demanded. The spirit obeyed and then departed, for there was nothing more that he could do. So there's the spirit, and he's going away. And here's the mountain that can remain even with the waves of the powerful storm. Tasaku became the mountain. He was more powerful than the prince, stronger than the sun, and mightier than the cloud. So here's the mountain, and here's Tasaku. But Tasaku felt the sharp sting of a chisel, that tool for cutting rocks. It was a lowly stone cutter chipping away at his feet. Deep inside, Tasaku shivered. So, boys and girls, that's the end of the stone cutter. I hope you enjoyed that story. There's a lot of lessons that we can learn from it, and I'd love to hear what you learned. Bye, everyone.